Warren Buffett says the problem with people is nobody wants to get rich slowly.
Yeah, that's a good quote right there.
That's great. That's great.
That's really good.
Welcome to Idea Drop, the show where we help people escape slavery in the modern day. We are going to discuss some business ideas that are going to help you quit that boss that you daydream about quitting. That's why we exist. We exist to entertain you while helping you figure out how to avoid Shark Tank and actually just feed your family with a killer business in your own control. Because at the end of the day, we all like control, especially Dustin. Dustin, how was your move across the country?
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, it's really long. Also, you kind of felt like you were like a little bit pro Karl Marx there on that intro, the slavery of work. You know what I mean? So I like that.
I'm
all
not
about
anti-Karl Marx, am I? Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe I am. Is that... Ooh.
Karl
not
Marx
go
is
there
tricky
today.
too because it's not who he is; it's just what everybody thinks who he is, and it's never like the man and the idea of the man are two very separate things. Anyways,
right.
the move across the country was so long. I don't know if you've driven from state to like one shore to the next. It is so bleeding long. It took 5 days of straight driving, and we were driving like 12-hour days. One day we had two blowouts on our tires, and these are brand new tires, so it was just terrible roads. Awful. Obviously, my insurance covers everything above $500.
state?
Oh, New Mexico. It sucks. Good burgers though.
Low taxes, potholes that blow out your
I don't
tires,
know.
high tire costs.
I've
just
done
like
that
giving
drive
it-
3 times, by the way. I've driven across the country 3 different times and regretted it every time.
It's the worst. What do you just like caffeine up and just go, or do you just stop hotel every single night? How do you do it?
Even if you think to yourself like, "Oh, I want to see the sights," right? And then you're like on
Yeah, you
day
don't wanna
2,
do it.
and you're like, "I am done," and I hate driving, and you're just gonna
Yes.
get there. So
Yes,
I've
that's
done,
exactly what it is.
Going from West Coast to East Coast, I've only actually done that drive once, and then and basically like stopped at the Grand Canyon, and then I was like, "F this, we're moving on." So
Yeah.
we just didn't stop anymore.
You stopped at the Grand Canyon. That's an out of the way stop too.
Yes, it
That's
was
not,
way
you
out
like
of the
added
way.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I immediately regretted it after the fact because I'm like, we went way out of the way to go do this stop, and it was just me and like one other guy, but it was still like way too ridiculously.
It's just
long.
not worth it.
No, it's
No.
not worth it.
We did that too. We went through Vegas. Vegas is always fun. Really good hotels, super cheap, everything. The Bobby Flay restaurant was not that good. The Gordon Ramsay restaurant also not that good. So shame on both of you. But yeah, that's what it is. Hey, by the way, Charlie, I don't know you very well. Can you give me a quick rundown, or maybe Kendall, you can?
Yeah, let me tell you why I invited Charlie.
Yeah, why is
So-
Charlie here?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure.
I mean, what he's asking is, are you good enough to be here, Charlie?
Yeah.
No, I know he's good enough.
Quality control time, guys.
Actually, can I say, Charlie, I think I've had like one conversation with you in depth, and I'm going to say what I think you do, and then please correct me. So I think Charlie started a business probably 10 or 15 years ago in the education sector, and that's how he met Kendall, because Kendall used to work in that world. And then Charlie, I think through slavery and hard work, you made it big and it worked, and you maybe have had an exit, and now you work with a couple of other businesses or something like that. But
I'll
I
correct
still
a
think
few
you're in the
details.
sector, and you have that's my idea of you. Is that accurate?
No.
So, so yes and no. So
Yes
so
and no.
Charlie and I used to sell hardware and software solutions to tech directors and CIOs at school districts across America. And so we were both salesmen. He actually helped train me. And I think for a while there was probably my boss. I can't remember all the details.
I take no
but-
responsibility for that. No.
Yeah, I'm not associated
Which
with
is
this
why
clown.
which is why he refuses to work for the man ever again. I was one of
The man.
One of the
Charlie
man.
is the
Is.
corporate man.
I was
You're the one who
man.
made him a Marxist. That's fantastic.
So here's actually the hot take on Charlie. He did help grow a business to a huge size and then sell it for 9 figures to 8 figures.
I think I'm still under non-disclosure about, but I did help grow.
You could just do a double eyebrow raise if it was 9. No, don't do that. It was big.
Yeah, the company I worked for, I started when they were $4 million company. When I left, they were $400 million company, right? So that was,
Oh, wow.
and in there somewhere we did have an M&A event where we got acquired.
Yeah. So to be clear, when you say it's a $400 million company, is that a annual revenue? Is that
Yes, annual revenue.
annual?
Yeah, that wasn't
Okay.
like an
Wow.
acquisition price or anything. That was just annual.
And I won't, because of your non-disclosure, and I don't know any of the details, but I did work in the space and I do understand the space. So I will just venture to guess, Dustin,
It's 9 figures. It's got to
on
be.
those numbers. Well, on those numbers, they probably on average did 40%, 30% net margin. Like they would have had high labor costs, but it was so much margin in
Really?
that business. The gross margins are often.
Was
well,
it just
no, you were
software
doing
sales?
bulk, weren't you?
A software product,
I'm off.
No, I mean,
Their points.
it's so funny.
It's the
You
opposite.
guys are wildly speculating. I have the answers to the questions. I'm just not going to give you.
Yeah.
But and I wasn't an owner, and this is what's so funny. I mean, Dustin, in so many ways, I am your target audience, right? Like I've been a corporate
really?
executive for 15 years. Yeah, like I've been a VP and senior VP of multiple companies, and and much by choice, I choose to be that slave because I'm so efficient and I'm so marketable now that I don't go anywhere that doesn't start me at a really high salary. Like it's like we don't start conversations below $250,000 salary with anybody that wants to potentially hire me. And so
that's great.
Yeah, it's so and some of that is maybe season of life intentionality, right? Like we've had small kids for such a long time. The idea of starting my own company, starting over from scratch. But again, yeah, I'm that target market. I'm probably, I know I got to be like 70-80% of your listeners who are like, would I ever do this? How hard is it? What kind of people start companies? And I have enough experience in a specific industry, educational technology, that I've had ideas over the years that I've let go, and I've seen other people do the ideas successfully, which like blows my mind and makes me annoyed at myself. But yeah, that's who I am. And
Can you name one of the ideas?
Yeah, one of the ideas I had when I was just thinking about hardware sales in the educational industry was reverse auctioning, right? I was like, I could just go start a company that schools go to or districts go to, and they say, I want to buy this product. I just want the lowest possible price. So go put a reverse auction online somewhere, and I want to just have vendors literally. It's like an eBay auction, right, where you can see what the next lowest bid is.
Why do they call it reverse auction if it's just like eBay?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know that.
I don't know why they call it reverse. I mean,
It's
I know
it's
we
like an
call
eBay
we
auction.
call it a reverse auction because we feel like it's a race to the bottom. It's like the lowest possible as the guy.
Oh, I know why. It's because you have a whole bunch of vendors bidding
Yeah.
to sell the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's not a whole bunch of buyers. It's a whole bunch of vendors. That's what it is.
Yeah, we're trying to. Yes, it's an auction for sale, not
One
for
buyer,
buy.
many
Got it.
vendors. Who will sell me this? And
Right.
that's
And the price
that
is
takes me
is
back
not
to why your
stepping
margins
up.
are
The
not
price
what I
is
thought they
stepping
are.
down progressively.
That's right.
So
Oh,
it's
that's
like,
nice.
Yeah, well, it's nice if you're the buyer. It's not.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
so-
I had this great idea. I'm like, I could start a website. I could start a company, an app or something, right? Let's figure it out, and just offer schools a way to get the best possible price on technology. Well, then a guy did it, and this is what's so crazy. A guy did it in the state of Missouri, and I connect with this guy, and we would occasionally bid on his stuff, and then he became so popular so quickly. He begins talking to people at the Department of Education level in the state of Missouri. And this is the only state that has currently done it. But in the state of Missouri, most of the big technology purchases are done by reverse auction now. And it's literally like mandated by the Department of Education. A deal gets a certain size. So like this guy literally is now working
How
in
much
the
money did he
government.
save the education department?
Oh,
like,
he's saving them
annually?
a ton of money. It's ridiculous.
dude.
Yeah.
Do you know how much money a state will do in like technology purchases?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole like educational technology industry. This is hardware and software. About $6 billion per year in the U.S. Right? So it's
In the U.S. So Missouri's share of that might be $200 million a year.
yeah,
of
maybe
spend.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
That's crazy. So then if he's, so it's like a brokering points-based business. Whoever will get access to this product I want and sell it to me at a smaller price, like they're who I'll do business with.
Right.
Which is why the margins aren't good. However, I remember a time, and this is not disclosing anything on your side of the table. I think we worked together at this time, but I had access to Salesforce. And I saw that the manufacturer we were working for was called N Computing. It went bankrupt, just a miracle of losing $77 million of VC capital. That was an amazing ride.
That was fun.
It went bankrupt mostly because of mismanagement, not demand. And I saw something in Salesforce that I was not supposed to see, which was basically $1 million purchase of our hardware from one of our vendors. Mm-hmm. And it was at half of the price that we sold it to any other channel partner for. So normally we sold these things into channel partners at $160. It was for $80 a device. Mm-hmm. And when they gave us $1 million, we gave them our product at half price, and they turned around and sold that for probably close to $2 million. And they probably would have had the demand for that to sell right away, because we as manufacturers reps went and created the customer demand through our own cold calls. So it was a pretty low risk business to be a vendor of these manufacturers, other than you have to be willing to put in the hustle to actually undercut your competitors.
Yeah.
And you got to come up with the capital to buy the product. Yeah. So it's basically a financing business with salespeople.
Although, I mean, again, this is what's so funny about venture capital is venture capital is so desperate to hit numbers on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Quarterly numbers.
Yeah. And they just measure shipment out, right? So that deal, that vendor, right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They gave them 120-day terms. So
oh my gosh, they didn't even have to come up with the cash.
They bought it, they sold it, and by the time they were done selling half the product, within 90 days, they had the cash that they needed, and then everything else is just gravy, right? So and again, this is where you can really take advantage sometimes of a venture capital company that's just desperate to move product and hit a number and just get crazy terms from them, right? And by the way, it's so funny, just going back to the reverse auction thing. Couldn't you do that for almost any product in any industry, right? Couldn't you go to bankers who need to buy stationery and be like, do you want me to reverse auction your stationery for you? Do you want me to,
right?
You're working with an airline, you want to buy,
I mean, in a lot of ways, the free market is just a big reverse auction,
right?
But you're talking about streamlining that into one website.
Right. That's so hard. A marketplace business like that is. Oh my gosh, unbelievably difficult to start. Although with a niche like that. I don't think so. You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think most people would assume so because we're used to thinking in B2C, consumer products, and so we it sounds quite complex because you'd have to know the right people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for let's say I wanted to start this company tomorrow and I'm not going to do it with Charlie. I would just go on LinkedIn and find people already doing the job and call them and say, hey, I'm going to start this startup. I've got the investment capital. Here's the idea. We're going to reverse auction to banks. We're going to sell stationery. Instead of the Michael Scott paper company, we're going to be the reverse auctioneers.
Yeah, but you have to get people on both sides. You have to get some users and sellers.
Once I have the salespeople.
Okay. So you have
their contacts. So what will happen is they already come with the contacts. So it's basically as hard as being a recruiting agency. I will go.
But why would I, as a company, say, hey, I'm going to give my contacts and go there when I could just say, hey, just come straight to me because we're the best. We're better than everybody else. Price, it's a. What do you think, Charlie?
I think you drive it from the person with the money, right? So it's the customer, and I'll just say this, there's riches in the niches, right? It's like the reason why this works so well is because. There's maybe only, 25 vendors in the space for the state of Missouri that are authorized on the state of Missouri contract to begin with. And so, these buyers.
How many? 25?
There's maybe 25 on the EPL. It's called. Yeah, it's like there's this.
So a school district can't buy from Amazon because they're not on the vendor list.
No, see that's what's so great. That's why the public
monopoly.
Amazon. Yeah, well, there are some monopolies. I mean, there are state contracts out there where somebody's been on it for 10 years without competition, right? And they own all the HP, Dell, or Lenovo product on that contract. You have to buy from them.
So it's not even HP, Dell, or Lenovo that are selling directly to Missouri school districts. No. It's a vendor who has that contract on lockdown, and HP has to sell it to, and that's the business. So
this is selling to the government, guys. And again, that's why there's these weird opportunities because you can identify a need, and this is why, again, it's complicated enough. It's hard to explain on a podcast, right? But
Sure.
once you understand the buying channels, you have to be able to take purchase orders from customers, not just immediate cash for purchases. You have to be a certain kind of business and have been in it a certain amount of years. And again, this is where I have all this information in my head. This is what makes me your typical corporate executive, because I've been in an industry for so long. I understand it. I'm highly valuable. I know how to get on that contract. I know how to
You
get
sold
a
out to the
relationship.
man.
I did. I
And
sold
you
out to
are
the
the man now.
Yeah, I'm one of the man.
If I'm out of a job, Charlie's the
You're
one I
the
call.
man.
Be like, hey, I can sell.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. How do you even get onto the contract if it's so restrictive, or is it just that nobody knows about it and they don't even try?
No, people know about it. I mean, I my previous company, I managed to get us on one of these contracts that nobody else had been on for 10 years. Well, after I got on it, 6 months later, I ended up leaving that company, and I'm like, oh crap, like that. Getting on the contract took me 5 years. I would say it was a political endeavor. Some of the state contracts are not that complicated. Like they can just, they can throw into the state of Kentucky. You can get added to the KPC pretty easily. You can sell 90% of the products that schools buy on the KPC contract. It's not hard to get added. You just pay the KPC fees to the state of Kentucky, and you're good. But if you want to sell Windows product in the state of Kentucky, you got to get on the KETS contract. And the KETS contract is that one that nobody knew got added to it for 10 years. I managed to get my previous company added to it after a 5-year effort and like leveraging this and doing that and moving enough business away from partner A to partner B that I had enough leverage with partner B that they would add me to the contract, right? So I had to do work. I had to sell.
You had to steal their business and then be like, hey, I'll come back if you get
Well,
me
it's
on
funny
the
because
contract.
I won't name names. Partner A tried to get on the contract with them for years and years, and they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't piss off the guy who they were on the contract with, right? Who's one of the gorillas of our industry, right? So, and I actually get that. That makes sense. What I did is the business I could move, say Chrome. I couldn't do Windows on the contract, but I could move Chrome business from partner A, who wouldn't put me on the contract, to partner B. So I just start moving revenue from partner A to partner B till finally I come to partner B with all this leverage and I say, I need you to put me on this contract. And they were like, well, we haven't had anybody this contract for 10 years. Nobody has. And I was like, do you want me to keep doing what I'm doing in this? And by the way, it wasn't just me. I had 3 sales reps in the state. We were going for it. And and I was like, do you want this partnership or not? And they weren't huge fans of the partner that was on the contract at the time. They just weren't.
So you got exclusivity, like the other partner, like
I think they put us both.
off?
They added us to it, right? And that was a huge political undertaking. Even with the state of Kentucky, they were just like, we haven't added anybody to this contract.
Those are all cigar room deals. So you like push somebody off of their cigar room deal through leverage.
Right.
This sounds like so much work. Like so much work.
Like
oh
I
my
said,
goodness.
it took years. It took years to do it, and it's like I don't even like I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that would even know what I'm talking about and how to do what we did there, right? And that's
Okay, so if I wanted to start a
business, an expensive executive.
No, that makes sense. Literally, you could just name drop right there in your resume that one thing, and they'd say, "Well, you're the only guy who knows how to do this. You're the only guy."
It would take us 4 years to figure out how to do this, and then you've done it.
Yeah, exactly. But if I wanted to, let's say, start a business, break into that sector, is that even possible, or is it just it's not worth the effort?
I mean, let me tell you, this is what's funny, because we just hired some new. So the company I work for now is a strong West Coast presence, not a strong East Coast presence. Mm-hmm. And we just hired a couple of East Coast sales reps, and we're doing territory allocation. And again, I'm like, Florida, sure, Georgia, sure, because the state contracts that exist there are not enforced, and they're sort of optional. They're not a big deal. North Carolina, South Carolina, very difficult state contracts. So again, it's like not only do I have this sort of regional information, I have this national information on state by state, because I've been doing this, like I said, for 15 years. For so long, I've run into all these contracts. So it's like I even know which states have contracts that they're serious about and which ones are easy pay to play. You can get on it like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Like, is your idea that you want to sell like this hardware into the state of North Carolina, and you're a North Carolina rep? Good luck. There's only 5 people in the North Carolina contract, and they're all the big guys. So again, it just depends on where you want to sell a little bit, right?
Everything's a freak ton of work, but to simplify some of these things, I just go, okay, if you were going to do this though, how do you pull it off? And it is always the people who already know how to pull it off. So the question becomes really simple. How do I get them on my team? And what do I need to give to the people to come to my team away from wherever they are now?
Right.
And it's not always straight cash.
Right.
You can deal in equity. You can deal in contracts for bonuses and commissions. You can deal in vision. You could do it with a sexier website. I mean, a better video. Sometimes these people like are making so much money working for a really bad brand. And sometimes you can just upgrade the brand and steal away great reps. I remember when I put a year of recruiting work in, so I was paid as a headhunter, and I probably talked to somewhere a couple hundred executives at least. It might be closer to 1,000, but like it was every business day I was just spending on back-to-back executive phone calls about getting these guys jobs. And I just learned all the knowledge is accessible by knowing somebody. Like it's the same way we conned Charlie onto this podcast so we could figure out how to make this business and compete with him. Like we want to start a $400 million business and you just gave us all your goods. So you could probably start a content company and then like pay sales reps in ego. You could be like, hey, we produce like great content for our industry. Do you want to be on the podcast? You want to be on our TikTok channel or whatever? I think there's some really interesting things you can do with networking. Recruiters can do this. They can get in like, hey, I'm connected to all the employers who pay $250,000 salaries. Like if that's what you want, let's talk. And you can just absorb so much info from humans.
I want to get really practical though. So Charlie, here, let me give you a real life situation. This is my situation. Let's say here, I just moved to Pennsylvania for a couple months, get to know the in-laws a little bit. And let's say I've got some extra money and a lot of extra time on my hands, and I like the information. What would be my move to say, hey, Charlie, give me your information. I give you equity in a company, and then let's go try to see if we could do something out here. Is there a play for any entrepreneur wanting to do something like that, or is it slightly different? How would you do it?
Yeah, Kendall's right on. It is a little bit of sort of who you know, and being able to get the basic information and find out in this industry, like if you're going to sell nationally, you're going to sell in PA. Is there a local competitor in PA? So are you offering local services? Break fix, enrollment, stuff like that, on-site deployment, or are you just trying to sell product nationally or in the state of Pennsylvania? So it really, like you want to know what you're up against as much as you can, and that information really is free if you know the right person. And I think, that's where I would potentially start. There are, and again, this is because we're talking about selling to the government, right? Like you can do so many other businesses. And it's not that complicated, and you'll figure it out within a couple weeks or months of banging your head against various walls. But it's like in selling to the government, there are years worth of walls and head banging that you'll have to go up against, or unless you find out somebody that can tell you, like, this is where I think there's an opportunity. Even there, I'll give you, for instance, I thought about this business last year, just selling blue screens, right? Like selling blue screens, the little covers that go on LCDs or Chromebooks. And they're going to start making Chromebooks within the next couple of years that have blue light filters. That's what I'm trying to say. So blue light filtering, people get the glasses for them now, whatever else. But it's like some states, it's such a hot issue right now. They're like, everyone's blinding children in California with their Chromebooks,
it's children health.
That it's like California is going to mandate, if they haven't already, they're going to mandate like blue light filters on devices. So I might point you at something like that and say, you know what, going up against us, big guys, we got credit lines, we got 20, 30-year relationships with HP and Lenovo, like that's tough. Go into something super niche, like just go sell 3D printers, just go sell blue light filters, just go sell etching equipment to schools. Because
services can be the hack, right? So if you just want to like feed your family, it's I could go install blue light screens for you that basically I'm unpackaging from the box, and I'm going to screw them and mount them to every single computer in all your computer labs, and you guys are going to pay me for this 2-day contract to do it, and I'm just going to do it while this is hot, and then I'll figure out what to install next time. But in that process of getting paid to be on site, you start meeting superintendents and principals, and you start taking names of other reps, and you start to network and build those relationships naturally while getting paid. And to me, that's the opportunity most people should pursue, is like, how do I use my effort and labor, not my crazy insight, to make money first? And then the insight gets combined with relationships over time. So I'm paid to learn, basically, and then I can do something more scalable in the industry after I have shaken all the right hands. If you know you're going to do that 3 years ahead of time, you can kind of call your shot. So you can go like 3 years from now, I'd like to make margin on every blue light screen that's sold in California. But today, I'm just going to make $2 per screen that I install, and I'm going to go hustle it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think to get into like a really niche industry like government sales, I think you do need to talk to somebody, find out where there's opportunity, get some ideas. And then I remember one of my favorite quotes ever from Stephen Ducker when he was our CEO at In Computing. And like this is the guy that launched E-Machines, which like when E-Machines launched, it was like
founder of E-Machines.
It was like the fastest growing company in all of American history when it launched, right? And I'm sure somebody's beat it by now, but it was just like incredible that this guy was our CEO of this little tech company.
Yeah.
And
competing with Apple and Microsoft and Intel for like computers, the race in the 90s for computers. Consumer computers.
So he had just these crazy insights, and he'd have these. We got a couple roundtables with him, and we asked like, hey, as up and coming sales reps trying to break into new industries, what is your best piece of advice, right? And he was like, I don't know that you need to take advice from me or your bosses or anybody else. We were just like, whoa, like, what are you saying? And he says, what you need to do is you need to learn from your customers, right? He's like, customers taught me all the best lessons I've ever learned about sales, about products.
It's so true.
And so, I'd say
it's so true.
To break into a niche industry, you need some help, you need some advice. And then once you're past the entry point, like Kendall's saying, if you can get a service business going or some basic business going, then you're just literally asking your customers, what else do you need done? What other opportunity is there? What gaps do you have in this part of your business? And then you'll figure it out. Stuff I'll never know, especially if it's a regional business.
When the government is interfering with the customer psyche, basically when you're selling things that have to be approved by the government or bought directly by the government, I'm fascinated by how people pull it off quickly. Like Elon Musk took SpaceX to a point that literally no one in history had ever flown the rockets for the U.S. other than NASA, which was paid. It was like, that's on government salary. How did he do that in 3 years? I feel like that can come back to, well, I don't know how, but I got the resources and the brand to go recruit the people who can figure that out. And he recruited enough of them fast enough as a public company that investors are like, yeah, he's probably going to pull it off. And so they just backed all that money to get the salaries to poach all those people. So sometimes there's these like financial or brand advantages that can make something happen overnight. But I kind of look at that stuff and go, well, is there like a local brand that I should have? How do I, like you mentioned getting 120-day terms before, and that let that vendor basically move $1 million of product without paying for it because they got paid on the resale of it before they had to pay the manufacturer. Like those little things, they can be done in a more microscopic way, but it has to be like through phone calls. You basically have to get the right people on the line and convince them like, hey, I'll pay you in 90 days. If you sell me this much, I'll buy it. I'll sign the contract. I'm good for it. But I need 90 days to pay you. And I'm the only one you should trust with this because X, Y, Z. So there's certain charismatic types that can pull this stuff off. So I think about these types of entrepreneurial, I think about this as a type of entrepreneur. This is like salespeople who could convert to running their own little brokerage, basically. They already know the charisma. They have the information. They're just, maybe they're kind of a little bit too much on the salary or they're scared. Like maybe they don't have 3 months of runway to feed their family. But if you can get that 6-month buffer and then just trust yourself to go for it, I don't even think it's that risky because you can get another job. If you go for it for 180 days and fail, but you were a good rep in your industry, just go back to work for somebody else in that industry.
Yeah.
But people don't do it because it's nice to have a paycheck every week.
Well, yeah. I mean, and by the way, I mean, it's funny, and these are the things that happen to us corporate executives that keep us locked in. Like I was working within computing, for like 5 years, and I couldn't get promoted out of the account manager role, right? I was like a double senior account manager, right?
That was dumb, yeah.
Whatever they could make me to, keep me in. But I left, and I went to go work for this startup. 3 months later, the guy fired me. Terrible experience. Went and worked somewhere else, another startup, tech startup. 3 months later, they fired me. And it was like the meat grinder sales effect, right? So then I went back to end computing. I did go back with such a passion that I got promoted. That. They brought me in as like a lead generation rep. A few weeks later, I was back in the account executive role. A few months later, I became a manager finally because I got my butt kicked. I learned some valuable lessons about leadership, politics, stuff like that. But it's just really interesting because it's like the times I've gone into the startup world to try to take some risks, like I've gotten my butt handed to me.
Yeah, your ass handed to you, yeah.
And so, again, and that's the sort of thing that, sticks with a corporate executive long into his career. But I will say this, I've seen sort of two people start companies in our space, right? It's the service guy that's getting paid, an hourly rate to do a job that a company is getting a lot more money for, and then they say, I could work for these 10 clients, and I could do these same services, and I could collect all the money. Those guys don't typically scale big companies, but they now have a lifestyle company.
But they have control of.
They have control.
Yeah.
They're making much better money they were before. And then it is the guys who are sort of the sales marketing guys who start these companies because they see what it takes. They're in this industry long enough, they see what it takes, and that's most of the guys that start companies that then scale. And this, again, an entrepreneur is going to hate to hear this, but you'll scale way faster if you got money. Right, like
for sure.
Because again, buying and selling to the government, your customer buys something from you, you got to buy it from somebody else. Maybe you have no terms with distribution or the manufacturer, so you're paying cash, and then you're getting stuff shipped to the customer, and then they're paying within 30 days, which is really 45 days more likely. So it's like you just.
Wait, why? Where'd the extra 15 come from in your payment terms?
They're just taking their sweet time. It's the government.
They mail
it's the government.
check.
They mail a check. They're like, I mailed the check.
Yeah, we post dated it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But business days, we kind of sent it on a Friday.
Yeah. So if you don't have, it's like, I mean, you could do it with like a home equity line of credit or something, right? But like you need credit to grow in this business quickly, or you need money in the bank, or again, just decide you're going to scale it quickly. You're going to scale as quickly as you can, and you're going to build your credit line slowly. I mean, you can do all that stuff too. Or you find like such a niche opportunity, like we mentioned before, where it's like, I found this vendor that's so desperate for me to sell their stuff. Like, this guy wants me to sell his Chromebook cases or something. They manufacture it all. They got tons of inventory sitting in North America, so they're desperate to sell it. And you just go to them and you say, I know how to market your stuff to schools.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and create a company that just sells your products, but you're going to give me terms. You're going to give me really good terms, right? And that's where you probably could get into the market a little faster than just going for like, I just sell everything to all these customers.
One of the things that we just started putting together some deals like this with not in a physical sense, people with extra inventory, but almost a digital sense. So founders who are very technical, maybe developers who made a product, and they don't know how to market or grow it, but they're really obsessive about their product. I've been finding them on MicroAcquire, and I've got one of our team members, one of our directors. This is like his full-time focus right now, is like literally looking, you're trying to sell this quote-unquote failed company for 20 grand or for 50 grand or 100 grand, something that's not really a big exit, but this person's just ready to be done with it. And we're going and saying, well, it's actually a good product. You have people paying for it every month. And if you maintain the product and keep growing it, how about we don't buy the product, but we use our own money to fund our team to do sales and marketing, and you just give us 30-40% of the business. And so like you can either sell this for 50 grand if you can convince somebody to buy it, or you could keep your baby and you can even keep control, and we'll be the growth team. But we want something significant that makes us want to put money into the team. But most people can't. Most people can't do that financially. They can't afford to pay the sales and marketing costs of a
Right.
deal like that.
Right.
But they can offer their time. So that's what fascinates me is like a lot of digital marketers out there have already done this work for clients. Why not just do it for equity and go convince somebody like, I'll market your thing. I know how to do it. I just don't have any money to bring to the table, but I'll do it for equity. And I need a lot of equity in order for that to work.
Mm-hmm. You could do it for equity or margin on the product, right? Like what you're talking about.
Yeah, you could skip equity. You could just do profit agreements.
I mean, it just depends on if you can
revenue
afford
agreements.
that or not, right? It's like, I mean, or just some combination where it's like, hey, you're an owner, operator, entrepreneur type, but that doesn't mean, you know, you have the time or even the money to go do demand generation, right? And that's why there's
Right.
all these demand generation as a service companies out there. What you're
Yeah,
talking
we have
about,
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is a sort of hybrid of that where I'm not going to pay you $50,000 for you to go do a
Right.
big marketing campaign. Like you're going to come and we're going to negotiate some equity, or we're going to negotiate just a percentage of the margin in order
Yep.
for you to do this service for us. And it's like, that makes sense.
I've recently been fascinated by, I've been talking with my director of finance a lot about skipping equity agreements and just going to like, let's make a 20-year revenue share agreement or profit agreement. If we see where the profit comes from, then we can do profit agreements. If that's not on our side of the table, and like we're afraid that the partner might just keep hiring until Kingdom Come and never keep net profit, but always keep spending the margin that they earn, then we'll just do it based on revenue. So we've been thinking about even like master classes with influencers, or like things that are media centric with revenue share agreements, because we'll just come produce it, we'll push it out, we'll market it, you be the talking head, people love you, and we'll just do, give us 20% of whatever we drive. And that gives us control of our own destiny, which is no different than being a commissioned sales rep.
Yeah.
You just have to know that some of these mechanics aren't that weird. You just have to know they exist, and that it's basically, if you can talk somebody into doing that with you, then you can do it. You can write up any kind of
It's a different
contract.
kind of commission is all it is, right? It's
a different kind of
we're
commission.
so used to what's my revenue percentage of that? What's my margin percentage of that? It's like companies have so many different kinds of commission they could afford you. I mean, yeah.
Dustin, there was this year when I was working with Charlie 10 years ago, or was it longer than 10 years ago?
It was about 10 years
We
ago.
both have had 5 kids since then.
Yeah, right.
Both of us.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
between the two of us, we got 10 kids. So,
Yeah.
but we also have wives, and that helps.
Yeah, that helps, yeah.
So it's not just Charlie and Kendall and 10 kids.
Yeah.
It's so we got our CFO's like commission renegotiation once a year. So January 1st would roll around, you'd get your new contract. And
I mean, you were lucky to
ours-
get it January. It was like February 15th, and they'd be like, "You got to
Okay,
sign
sure,
this.
yeah.
You got to sign
And
this
it's
in 2
backdated.
days."
Wait, it's retroactive? That's awful.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was.
I would be so mad.
That's fair.
Yeah.
They were jacked
Yeah,
up.
and they'd be like, "You got to sign this to get your commission in a week," and we'd be like,
Oh my gosh.
"You just gave us the contract, guys. That's
so
a jerk move."
So literally, like, and that is the point I was gonna make. Like, they became scientists at how to squeeze. Like sales reps.
Yeah.
Like they would do complicated Excel math. There'd be accelerators. It's 3.2% unless there's a cap. Yeah, here's a decelerator point. Here's a minimum to make you feel safe. Like, we're gonna pay you at least this much, but within 90 days, if you don't meet that, you're fired. Like they would have basically a very complicated commission agreement.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, the company worked on very simple math. Like, they made a product for $30 overseas. They shipped it to the US and sold it to distributors for $160. Like, they made that margin, and then they used salespeople to move it, but they'd pay us in these really complicated things, which doesn't make any sense unless your goal is to squeeze.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's actually, in that pain, there's huge opportunity. Like, I could probably go rally 10 salespeople this week with some cold emails of like, are you tired of getting screwed by your CFO every year with your new contract? Let's do the same business you're doing. I got some money and some creativity and some marketers.
Yeah, possibly.
but we'll
However,
pay you
those
more.
definitely those contracts work though. Like the shitty part of those contracts is they are designed to make you like wet
Until they
like
quit.
you are so excited.
They
You
work
are-
until they quit. So that's what I'm saying is like, what if the proactive?
I feel like they
part
work
of
until you burn out. You burn out. I mean, I've been in sales and I've done exactly that thing,
Yeah.
where it's like it's for some reason I always saw it was just this quadratic line where it's like this is a lot of work and this last part is probably the majority of the work, but that's where all the money is, and you're just like killing yourself 7 days a week just because unless I cross this threshold for this in this amount of time period, I'm not going to get the money.
Every sales rep right now that's listening to your podcast is dying on the inside, right? And and there are
They
terms.
feel seen.
Yeah, there are
They feel
terms that
seen.
you will hear thrown around all the time. Like what's your OTE, right? And it's like if you're
OTE.
using OTE on target
How
earnings,
bad are you getting screwed?
You're getting screwed, right? Because
Yep.
that means somebody's giving you a quota and they're going to pay you against that quota. So it's not just a strict margin percentage that you get paid on the sales you do or percentage of revenue. It's like an OTE is a screw you salesman contract. So like from when I started with the original manufacturer I worked for, where I my first year I maybe sold $250,000 worth of product and I made X amount of money, call it like 40 grand back then, way back at the day.
Wow.
And then, by the time
$20 an hour.
I left, it was like I was probably selling like $4 million a year, making 50 grand, right? Because I had made it up, I had made it up to the senior account level,
Oh my
right? A little more
gosh.
salary, I had a little more, but again, they just raised my goal every year and pay me against the attainment of that goal. I mean, software companies do it to reps by paying them for acquisition, not renewals, right? There's so many ways. And by the way,
Charlie,
all the
you run a-
salespeople are dying hearing this.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, I hate this and I hate my company for this. They're such jerks. Like they just do this to you.
Oh, they're such jerks, and it works. It's the worst thing on earth. Incentivization structures are just awful. But Charlie, you run. You are at least over
Sales
several
teams.
salespeople. How do you do it? How do you structure yours?
Oh, we rip them off. Yeah, big time. No, we do. Having been a salesperson, when I get to influence sales contracts, it's a strict percentage, right? And you got to figure out, like, if you're in
Just a flat
manufacturing,
percentage.
it might be a percentage of revenue because margin's too hard to figure out. And like Kendall said, sometimes manufacturers make weird deals where they're cutting margins to get hidden. So if you're a manufacturing rep, it's like you're going to get a really low percentage maybe of revenue. If you're if you're a reseller like we are, or you're somebody that you want the sales reps to be conscientious of the margin, you're going to pay a percentage of margin. And then it's just uncapped. It's just a strict percentage, whatever that is, right? That could be a 3% deal, a 10%, a 50%. It just kind of depends on the complexity of the product and the sale and the sales cycle.
That sounds
And,
refreshingly simple. I like that.
It is so simple.
So we've been talking about referral fees, by the way. So we have these. I'll just plug this. So we have one of our companies. We have developers in Cairo, Egypt, and we're basically able to offer higher quality developers for cheaper than India at this point, because India has gotten so popular in software development. So over the last few years, we've been growing a team in office in Cairo, Egypt, and we're like, how do we actually get the word out to enterprises? And this week I did a meeting with let's provide a spiff or an incentive to salespeople who already sell into technical executives in enterprises. Because I can look that up on LinkedIn, run some filters, and then we can cold email those people. We were trying to figure out how to incentivize them. And a couple of people on my team were like, well, this is kind of our profit. Let's pay them a percentage of profit. It becomes an administrative nightmare. And the rep is going to take all the baggage of all the people who've screwed them. And they're going to be like, I'm not getting screwed again. No, thank you. But if we go, no, we'll give you $3,000 for the handshake that turns into a deal. We'll just send you $3,000. It doesn't matter how much we make or don't make. Like if we get a deal, you get $3,000. If we get a big deal, you get $8,000. And that's kind of where we left it. But we did the math of okay, this is this percentage that actually pencils for us sustainably. And that was that's what basically a spiff is. Mm-hmm. But then the other option is but for the sophisticated ones who want to do this for the next 2 years with us, let's just give them 10% of it. It's more than they're making on anything else that they sell. Mm-hmm. And if they want to keep doing it for us, we don't need to pay them a salary if they already have the contacts. Yeah. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs I think a lot of salespeople see themselves as entrepreneurs, and there's two kinds. There's the ones that are doing the corporate, this is the only thing I sell. And there's the other ones that are I'm kind of a broker and I really don't care about the products. I'm more product agnostic. What I care about is my customers, and I'm just going to protect the customer. and the customers want things, which is the whole business model that you're operating now.
Yeah.
I think you can do that independently and just make money on everything that you recommend to your customers.
Yeah, and there are those models. Interestingly enough, there's like agent models, they call them, in our industry sometimes, which is really weird when you run into it, where you might have a certain manufacturer that in 27 states they sell through the channel, and in other states they go direct, and then in some states they have like an agent program where if you refer a deal you'll get it something, but it's still they're going to still sell direct to the customer, and those models exist even in our industry.
By the way,
we hate
Charlie,
them,
I will pay your wife's LLC 10% of revenue for any referrals to an executive who wants developers in Cairo, Egypt. So just to be clear, Charlie.
It's great.
Speaking of
Charlie,
my wife, I got to ditch you guys in about 2 hot seconds here because she's coming to pick me up for lunch.
Oh, you're good. Okay, really one quick question for you then. If you had to start all over, what would you start in? Would you start in the same sector? Would you start your own business? What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, having worked primarily in the hardware and hardware-software industry, I would say go software, right? I mean, just in terms of scalability, in terms of
no supply chain, no logistics.
Logistics, warehouse employees.
Net terms, financing.
And a lot of software companies do go direct in our industry, but there are some that don't, and there's some that are trying to break into the industry, and there's new software titles all the time. And software, I think, would be the way to go. And those guys, you find an independent software outfit that's trying to sell directly to schools, and you can either figure out a way to do one of these various programs, Kendall, you've talked about, or actually set up your own LLC or S Corp or C Corp and resell their product. So you actually control that customer relationship and the money. That's nice. And those guys can offer you terms, right? Because there's no cost of goods for them. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's good advice.
If you owned a software product and you want to sell it into education, would you just go after like channel reps? You just like go on LinkedIn and go after channel reps first and see if they're interested.
If you
in
had your
selling
own software company, I think it's hard to do that. I think you have to get a certain amount of saturation and presence within a market
before
directly.
the channel reps will listen.
Yeah, before anybody in the channel will listen to you, and it's like, do you go into distribution and have access to lots of channel partners, or so those are all tough questions to answer. Most of the hardware and software companies in our industry that start making their own goods, they go direct first because you kind of have to, because there's so much noise. There's millions of products out there. It's like, why do I want to work with Bob's USB cables, when there's like a million other USB cable companies out there, or this, this social emotional learning software, this tutoring software, this math software. It's like there's so many titles out there already. You have to have a presence already, so then you can go leverage that to say, look, we got business. Look, we're a real company too, right? At least in our industry, because again, tenure matters in government sales, right? And that's the kind of thing an entrepreneur hates to hear.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to borrow some tenure sometimes to get into this industry, or buy the tenure. But it does
Warren
matter.
Buffett says the problem with people is nobody wants to get rich slowly.
Yeah, that's a good quote right there.
That's great. That's great.
That's
actually.
really good. Yeah. All right, guys.
Well, get to your wife's lunch.
Lunch.
Dustin, we should hang on.
Let's hang on a little bit.
Yeah. See you, Charlie. So I feel like there's a lot of sales reps who can do something kind of with Idea Drop. I think marketers and sales reps are two good types of people that we help.
Mm-hmm.
If we spent some time indexing like the commissions of different industries and put it like, hey, did you know that in educational software you get 10%, in hardware you can get 4%, in recruiting you can get 25%. Like I feel like we should do a whole episode on like who pays what. Like, here's the information that we know of. Or just write a list.
Yeah, sales rates on different industries. That is interesting stuff.
Car sales?
That's wildly variant as well. Oh, gosh.
But more like, what can you get? Like, what are you worth? Like, I feel like people don't know what they're worth.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that sinking feeling of, am I getting screwed right now, or do I have a fair deal? And how do you know unless you know the numbers?
That was an idea that we talked about a little bit several months ago. It was basically just a regional chart, and you could check out industries and pay rates and in different sectors and regions. And so just a world map, and then you say, I have this job, and it's here,
Right.
and the
Glassdoor,
average rate.
but on a
yeah,
map.
Glassdoor,
Yeah.
but it doesn't suck because Glassdoor is not good.
What if you just did Glassdoor for commissions? Like, what if, like, I bet within that one niche of salespeople tend to stay salespeople their whole lives if they don't go run a company. Like, that's very common.
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely.
They talk that talk, they think that way, and they need to know, well, if I...
But okay,
take on-
sales in itself is so widely variant as we're talking about. Like, let's say
sure.
your average salesman, let's say a below average salesman could be making $50,000 a year. The high end of sales could be in the millions. It really could be.
It is. It is. But I feel like there's a strong median. I feel like there's a very...
Within
it's
industries.
definitely-
Okay, you tell me, what's the strong median? You've done sales in, what have you done? Solar?
Probably like 6 or 8 industries. I don't even know.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
exactly.
the strong median. So it's more of like an economic comment. Like for the same reason as capitalism tends to squeeze salaries to between 40,000 and 300,000, and the median is going to be like, I think the median nationwide is going to be like 68,000 or something like that right now. And like 300,000 is uncommon, so is 30,000 these days. In commissions, it's really just a percentage that adds up to that same range, because somebody else will out hustle you for your job. But there is a little more variance in, like, people can kind of build a moat around their Rolodex. So like, oh, my boss actually can't fire me for a cheaper rep because my relationships are so good, I have a moat around them. So those types of positions tend to set a pretty high precedent. Like, oh, now somebody at our company, like this one rep at our company is making $700K a year. Everybody else is making $70K, but this one rep's making $700K. So then it becomes politically easier for people to start like making more if they're in sales. So the sales compensation will quickly outscale every other department in a company that's growing. And that's just always how it works. It, like, if marketers and salesmen have the same gift mix, salesmen end up making 30% more on average just in pretty much every company. You can see the data on LinkedIn. But if we gave them a map of like, hey, here in California, pick your county, and here are the self-reported commission rates and the thing that they sell. That's all I want to know. I want to know, like, what's the rate you're making and the thing that you sell. Because if I could just browse that, I could be like, ooh, I could sell that.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Let's say you wanted to actually do this, monetize it, people pay in to see, and then they have to post what they're making. I mean, it totally works. That would work really fast. You just have to get enough traction.
Yeah, well, and you can like get average data and then start it with all the average data and then self-reporting from there. So it's still valuable on day one, and it becomes more accurate the more people use the tool. Pretty easy to build. I think there's even no-code tools at this point that build smart
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Bro, have you been on ChatGPT lately? I know. It's been a while since
I have. Last night.
I can't get in. How do you get in? Like, every time I go there, it's just the stupid queue. It's awful. But keep going.
Oh. Well, maybe it was because I was on at like 11 at night, maybe.
Easy. Let's check it right now.
So I was on last night having it rewrite me a long form SEO article.
Okay.
I wrote 2 paragraphs, and then I think the prompt I used was, hey, take my 2 paragraphs and make it longer and drive home this one point and optimize it for SEO. And then it was pretty good, but it was boring. And so I said, make this funnier. And it was hilarious. Honestly, it was hilarious what it wrote. And then I prompted it again and said, make this funny version longer. And then it gave me a longer funny version. I said, make this one more clear. And I ended up with a pretty good like result. And now I'm sending it off to my editor for a piece about one of our recruiting companies.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's good for that. I also think it's overused for that. A lot of people are sleeping on the fun stuff, like using it to program codes and stuff like that. Or
True. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm creative. I'm just saying it's
no. It's so quick for copy. It's like
Yeah.
the most quick thing on earth. The only issue, so here's the issue with using it for copy is I think it stopped updating as of 2021. So if you want to write any article on anything that's new,
Yeah.
it can't do it. It won't do it.
No.
But it'll
No.
summarize your bad writing and make it nice. You know?
Well, that's what I'm using it for. Is
Which is
like
perfect,
I
yeah.
actually put in. It was more about a story in my life, right? It
Oh,
wasn't
nice.
really about modern
Yeah.
information. And then I used it for tone correction.
Yeah.
And then to like, it was almost like having the podcast. I can talk to you, and then we can kind of, oh, this is actually what I wanted to talk about, and we
Totally.
kind of steer by feel. So I got to steer my article by feel without getting writer's block,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what's cool. Then send it to an editor, so it's not actually just written by, by a bot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Man, I'm so bummed. I'm always having the hardest time getting into it. It just drives me up a wall.
It'll get better. It'll get better.
Yeah, obviously it'll get totally better. I want them to just charge for it. I'm happy to pay for it. But anyways, yeah, that's that. Dude, are you? So let me tell you really fast. So I took a road trip across America recently, right last week, and
Yeah.
in that time, I listened to. There's this podcast out there called Founders. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No. No.
It's all about founders of businesses. And so I listened to the story of about probably like 20 or 30 founders. I'm talking everything from Estee Lauder to Bill Gates to the guy who did the Dyson vacuums, like every single thing in there. And ready for this?
Are
I
they
listened.
guests, or is it just about them?
No, he reads biographies. The guy reads like a biography a week and just gives you a 1 hour summary. And it's so nice. It's so convenient because I love reading a biography, but I'll be honest, if I could have biography condensed down to 1 hour, that's in most cases good enough for me. Dude, you know what the number one common denominator I saw and just listening to all of it? Can you give it a guess? What do all these founders have?
Obsession.
It's obsession, dude. It's obsession. It's not even
Yeah.
money. It's
Okay.
like it is
Yeah.
like they
No,
are
it's obsession.
obsessed to a largely unhealthy degree, which is what it takes to be like that
Yeah.
big. But oh my god, it was inspiring and depressing at the same time. But yeah, dude, that was
Okay,
there you go.
so some
That's your-
hope, some hope
hope.
for people. That's only for like the ones that are like legendary stories around a brand that just
yeah,
went through
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
roof. That's not. There's also investment bankers, private equity. There are brokers that are very, very successful and wealthy. There's, Warren Buffett. There's venture capitalists. There's lots of ways to get very, very wealthy, especially in the finance derivative
Yeah.
methods, without that obsession over a single thing. You can just be obsessive over making things work. I gotta go pick up my sick wife. I have a sick child, and I have a baby to take care of, and my wife is sick. So that's what we get for going to New York for a week. All right, my friend. I will see you next week. Ciao.